thanks for joining today for our session entitled CNF Certification with Red Hat, Intel, and Nokia. My name is Mark Longwell. I'm the Director of Alliances in the Hybrid Platforms Business Unit at Red Hat. I am joined here today by Arvinder Khanna of Nokia and Thomas Sennhauser of Intel. Thomas and Arvinder, we want to do a quick intro of your title and role, say hello, and then we'll move into the meat of the discussion.
Yeah, my name is Thomas Sennhauser. Thanks for having me here today. I'm the CTO running the CTO office in Asia Pacific and the business lead, so for the telecom sector for Intel, based in Singapore.
Yeah, Ben, this is Arvinder Khanna from Nokia. I am head of pre-sales and solution for Nokia Cloud and Network Services business, APJ.
All right, thank you, Arvinder. Thank you, Thomas. So let's talk about the following. Why do CNF vendors or cloud native function vendors do certification? What are service providers looking for from CNF vendors and platform vendors? Thomas, from your experience with Intel, maybe you can just talk about a few bullet points on what CNF vendors or why they do certification at the current time.
Sure. Happy to take that. I think the key thing is really for a lot of the partners we see, and of course also for us, is that we have an open system, and you want to make sure that you are able to bring your CNF up to a certain level of speed, and the certification is helping to do basic test and enabling in an environment which you can leverage then in a comm service provider or on an enterprise customer side. And I think that's definitely something which a lot of the partners, but also the comm service provider is asking for. So they don't spend a lot of time setting the stuff up, getting that done. And you have a standardization which is helping, to run that in your lab, and also go to market is reduction on that side. So I think in a nutshell, that's really the key drivers behind what we see that you can drive that in a faster time.
Great. Yeah, and I think some of the things that we see from the Red Hat side is, Intel's made some great advances in hardware features, and some of the testing we do, we want to make sure that the CNF is leveraging the hardware features that Intel has put into there, right? So it's getting the most efficiency from the CNF platform, or the CNF solution with the hardware platform where OpenShift sits. So that being said, we also like to reduce time to market, right, and cost by bringing new services and, quite frankly, revenue to the service provider more quickly. And as you stated earlier, we're trying to reduce this complexity of implementations, right, by doing this testing before before service providers implement these solutions. We're trying to get them to faster to market. We're trying to reduce downtime and obviously try and increase their revenue. So let's talk a little bit about Nokia. So Nokia is one of the premier equipment providers in the world. We've done some work with Nokia, both Intel and Red Hat. Arvinder, can you just provide us a little bit of the Nokia vision on why validating and certifying your CNFs in general, and in particular on OpenShift and Intel hardware, is crucial for Nokia's success in the service provider space?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. What we see, the feedback from the customer, they do not want to see their labs or their test resources or the teams being used as a first off or the guinea pig of the technology. So what the consistent feedback is that make sure the technology works. So first and foremost, the confidence of interworking with the different technology providers such like Red Hat and Intel to do the certification. Either can be a light certification or the full certification. They do not want that technology to be proven and in their labs. So that's what our vision is, to make sure that all the interworking integrations are done. And I can go through in details what, from a vision perspective, the feedback we are taking from the customer. Not only we do the onboarding of the CNF from an image or Helm chart perspective, but then going into the life cycle management, bring the cluster up, make sure the resources, quota, namespace, all are done, Then we look into the cluster elasticity operations. The key feedback, again, from the telcos out there is very simple. They do not in future want to have a human and a workforce, a massive workforce managing their operations. So when it comes to the scale in, scale out, of course, planned shutdown, graceful shutdown, that's we wanted to make sure is done in the lab first. Health check of the system. How do you do the healing of CNF? Now, when healing can be either on the process down, or can be pod down, or can be cluster down. This is what the customer is telling us, that these are the basic concept moving forward. And when we deploy a CNF in any cloud, and Nokia's vision is any cloud, we check all of these things, and based on the capacity requirement of the certain customer, backup and restore, talk about the certification management, how the inter and the intra certificate works within CNF. That's what they're looking for us to make sure that it is there. And then the other functions on the operation side, how they call as the observability of the technology, can be a logging verification, the retention policy of the logs. They talk about integration with the NMS. Has that been basic tests has been done? Fault management, performance management. Then if I have to delete the CNF, then how the CAS operator dealt with that storage checks, or that we call a storage class perspective. And then we go to some of the advanced feature in the lab, depends on operator to operator demand, especially on security management is key. And have we verify the deployment of our CNF based on the security checklist of the certain CAS, port scanning, pod security. These are the simple and can be advanced as well, operators to operators. So the vision is that by the time we go into telco operators network, all of this lifecycle management, the onboarding part, and some of the performance or robustness, especially in terms of the CNF and the CAS integration, the startup sequence, etc. So the key is get the lifecycle management done, get your operations demands met before we hit into the telcos network.
Great, Arvinder. Yeah, I think you've encapsulated, the thorough testing that Nokia does before CNF, is released into the market and is supported by Nokia, realizing that you have pretty strict SLAs to hit. We realize that the service providers, are holding the partners like Nokia and Red Hat and Intel specific to those SLAs. So the more testing that is done previous to releasing a product into service is going to better service all, which is actually a nice segue into the lab that we have with Intel. This is a joint Intel Red Hat lab that is in New Mexico in the U.S., where we are bringing CNF partners in like Nokia to do testing, either to augment their lab work and provide additional space to do work, or to do specific work in there. And just at a high level, from a Red Hat perspective, what we're looking at from an OpenShift and a CNF being tested together is we're looking at, I would say, the basic functionality. So our vendor talked about the very thorough testing that Nokia does before they release the CNF to market. Our testing is more at the foundational level to make sure just simple things like the installation of the CNF on OpenShift is functional, meaning it can be loaded. And we look at things like container and operator best practices from a Red Hat perspective, just to make sure that we're comfortable that the CNF integrates and interoperates with OpenShift as best as possible. And then our vendor mentioned lifecycle management. So we're looking at operators, looking at Helm charts also, but we're not going into the depth that Nokia would in their testing before they released their products to the market. We're looking at networking connections. We're looking at some CNF specific tests that we look for just based on our experience out in the field. Some of the things that we're not testing, but we know Nokia is, and this is why we leave it to them, is that specific functionality, right? That Nokia specifies what their CNF is titled to do. Red Hat is not testing that. We are leaving that to Nokia. Right? Once again, that's the functionality that Nokia is selling into the marketplace. And the same with the performance characteristics. If we did a point in time measurement in a lab, it might not be. It would be indicative only, right, of a point in time, right? It doesn't provide, I would say, real world data. This is where Nokia and their additional testing in their labs and before they bring to a service provider will have performance characteristics documented and so forth, and I'm sure they're in part of their agreements with the folks from with service provider customers. So Thomas, we've also had this ability in New Mexico to replicate a service provider environment, the Intel lab. Could you talk about some of the benefits to our CNF vendors for our ability to do that in the lab in New Mexico, funded by and endorsed by Intel?
Sure. No, I think, as said previous, I think it's really important that the partner can come easy, to install their application on the Red Hat OpenShift, doing follow a script and really do the basic testing. Again, I mean the level of testing we are doing in the Mexican lab is really, I would call it, functional testing. And really helping, that the things is just working. I will call it, things is working when it goes out of that. And there's a lot of benefit into that. I mean, again, it will help the partners, that they can go then into an operator, into an enterprise and leverage that. And as said before, a lot of the time, let's be frank, if you don't do that, you spend 2-3 weeks on things which is suddenly not working and surprises you have. So I think that's definitely a big benefit when you have this certification. The things is working, the installation environment up and running, and I think that's definitely the things we are doing. And we have a lot of demand on that, bringing partners into the New Mexico lab, and I think it will grow. And I think this combination is really helping the industry to speed up the things and optimize also the application which we are testing on that. And then of course, as said, from Nokia point of view, there's a lot of more things like integration into the OSS, fault management system, etc., which would I think it would be a little bit too much if we would do that too. And again, then it comes to performance testing where you need very specific workloads. And I don't think we want to go that way. I think that's really something you do in a specific environment. But the other part, I think, is definitely what we see. And I think, again, we still have space and we're always happy to bring more partners on that. So I think just reach out to us or to anybody on the Red Hat side and we can bring them and help them to do that certification.
Great. Yeah. Thank you very much, Thomas. And Arvinder, just going back to some of the work that Nokia has done, what sort of solutions or CNF solutions has Nokia tested so far on OpenShift on Intel hardware?
From a telco perspective, so we have IT and the telco grade. So it depends on which one we can pick. So mainly from the 5G core perspective, we just started the journey with Red Hat, but that's where our focus area is. From that perspective, we also looked into from a IT grade, go into the orchestration part, assurance, security. These are the common functions where we are starting that journey with Red Hat recently.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Arvinder. Yeah, I think we've stressed the importance of why certification, what's in it for the vendors, why service providers are asking and pretty much demanding certification work be done before it's brought into their environment. Just some final thoughts, Thomas, on the lab, the market itself. Where do you see us in the next 3 to 6 months? Then we'll ask Arvinder for a quick wrap up, and then we'll move on from there. Final thoughts, Thomas?
Yeah, again, there is, we did the journey from from a VM to a cloudification part. I still think, of course, we are always thinking, that's already done. But the reality is there's a lot in the market which still needs to go through this journey. And also, if you have a cloudification application already, I think there's still some optimization, as you said, software, hardware optimization, which can be done. And I think, again, this lab environment gives the opportunity also for partners of us, to see that and also to do an improvement of their current environment or application they have. So I see there's a lot of work. Again, we achieved a lot of the last 1.5 years, I would say, when we started with the lab. I think that's definitely great, but I think there's a long way to go. There's a lot of different maturity level which different partners have. I think where both sides, all our partners can help each other. There's a lot of learning we can take out of that. So I think there is a ongoing part which I see for the next couple of months and 12 months ongoing. I think there's definitely work to be done, but again, I think we have achieved a lot already, and again, there is a lot of the cloudification part which just started, to be frank with you.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. I know we brought about 10 or 12 partners through the lab, and it's been quite successful. It's a learning journey for all of us. Arvinder, any final thoughts on your side from the Nokia perspective?
Well, I think Thomas said very, very clearly. I mean, the different operators are taking a different journey, and we are feeling that as a telco solution provider, everyone has their own need. At the end of the day, the customer make a decision what CAS platform they wanted to go ahead, and the challenge for us is to comply to all of those requirements. We are any cloud. Sort of our vision is from a Nokia cloud and network services perspective, any cloud, and we look into the journey. I think the VNF to CNF discussion, I think it's all done now. The question here is that how does the CNF then go into public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud, where the journey, their ability to support that structure as well. And we are helping our customer to define that strategy based on their maturity level is. I think after the CNF discussion, what we are finding is in the next 6 months it's about reliability of the CNF in any cloud. It's not about features perspective anymore. It is more about how the CAS is going to perform. Is it reliable? Is it the CNF is reliable? How we are testing it? Is the network is reliable to support it? Is the storage is reliable? So all of those reliability question marks are now coming into, and we are saying, how do we automate? And automation becomes the main mantra moving forward. It's not about the features, but how about I can have a confidence in supporting the network without too many processes and manpower on it. Our customer wanted to see a self-healing network in place, and this is why we can actually take the lesson from the technology and then automate, and the testing, the lab certification is the one area where it builds that confidence.
All right. Well, thank you, Thomas and Arvinder, for those insights into some wrap-up thoughts. So I think we're good. Everyone, thanks for attending the CNF certification with Red Hat, Intel, and Nokia session at APAC Forum. And Yvonne, we are concluded.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.